I thought I knew my wife after 15 years of marriage. Then I came home early and discovered her secret life. The messages I found made my blood run cold. That night, I made a decision. She disappeared for one day with her lover. When she returned, I would be gone. What happened next shocked everyone, especially her. My name is Mark Thompson. I'm 42 years old and the proud owner of Auto Pro, a chain of 5 high-end auto repair shops across the Boston area. I built my business from scratch, starting with a single garage and a toolbox. Now I employ 35 people and have a reputation for honesty and quality work, 2 things I value above all else. I met Sarah at a friend's barbecue back in 2008. She was smart, ambitious, and drop-dead gorgeous with those piercing blue eyes that seemed to see right through you. After dating for 2 years, we tied the knot in a simple ceremony on Cape Cod. She pursued her career in tech while I expanded my business. We were the power couple among our friends, successful, happy, solid. At least that's what I thought until that Wednesday, in April, when I came home early from a business trip to Chicago. I had wrapped up my meetings with a potential partner a day ahead of schedule, and I decided to surprise Sarah. Our 15th anniversary was coming up, and I thought we could get an early start on celebrating. I opened our front door quietly, planning to surprise her. The house was silent. I assumed she was still at work at TechVision, the software company where she'd been climbing the corporate ladder for the past 5 years. I headed to our home office to check on some invoices that Sarah had promised to review. Her laptop was open on the desk, the screen showing her email. I wouldn't normally look, but a message preview caught my eye. Can't wait to see you tomorrow. Jay. I shouldn't have clicked it, but I did, and my world collapsed. The email thread between my wife and someone named Jason contained dozens of messages. Personal messages, intimate messages, plans for a special getaway while I was supposed to be in Chicago. Photos I wish I could unsee. I stood there, my hands shaking, as 15 years of trust evaporated in an instant. The front door opened, and I heard Sarah's voice calling out my name in surprise. Mark? What are you doing home early? Mark? What are you doing home early? Sarah's voice echoed from the hallway. I closed the laptop slowly, my mind racing through options. Confront her now? Pretend I saw nothing? I've never been one to avoid difficult situations. You don't build a successful business by running from problems. I turned to face my wife as she entered the home office. Flight got canceled. I lied, watching her face carefully. Decided to come home instead of waiting. Sarah smiled, but her eyes darted nervously to the laptop. That's wonderful. I missed you. She moved to hug me, but I stepped back slightly. I need to ask you something, Sarah. Who's Jason? The color drained from her face. She opened her mouth, then closed it again. Her hand clutched her purse strapped tightly. He's just a colleague. We're working on a project together. Must be some project, I said, my voice steady despite the rage building inside me. Involving hotel rooms and things I'd rather not repeat. Sarah's expression shifted from shock to defensive anger. You were snooping through my emails? How dare you invade my privacy? I laughed without humor. Privacy? We're married, Sarah. 15 years. And you're worried about privacy while planning weekends with your coworker. It's not what it looks like, she stammered, reaching for the standard cheater's playbook. It looks exactly like what it is, I replied, refusing to be gaslight. How long has this been going on? She sank into a chair, suddenly dropping the outrage act. A few months, she admitted quietly. It just happened, Mark. We were working late nights on this big project and... Save it, I interrupted, raising my hand. I don't need the cliches. I walked to the window, staring out at the yard we'd landscaped together last summer. Is he coming here tomorrow? To our house. Sarah's silence was answer enough. I see. So while I was supposed to be in Chicago, you were planning to bring him to our bed. No, we were going to his cabin on the lake. I would never. That distinction means nothing to me, I said coldly. My phone buzzed. A text from Steve, my oldest friend who ran a successful sports bar downtown. Hey man, you back early? Saw your car drive by. Want to grab a beer? Perfect timing. I needed to clear my head. I'm going out, I announced, grabbing my jacket. Don't wait up. Mark, please. Sarah stood, tears streaming down her face now. Can we just talk about this? It was a mistake. It didn't mean anything. I paused at the doorway, looking back at the woman I thought I knew. If it didn't mean anything, that's even worse. You threw away 15 years for something meaningless. I drove to Steve's bar in a daze, hands gripping the steering wheel so tightly my knuckles turned white. When I arrived, Steve took one look at my face and led me to a quiet corner booth. "You look like hell, buddy," Steve said, placing a whiskey in front of me. "What happened?" I told him everything, the words pouring out between sips of bourbon. Steve listened without interrupting, his face darkening with each detail. When I finished, he leaned forward. "Listen, Mark. Sarah made her choice. Now you need to make yours. Whatever you decide, I've got your back." For the first time since discovering the emails, I felt slightly steadier. At least I wasn't alone. "Another round?" Steve asked, signaling the bartender. I shook my head. "Better not. Need a clear head to figure out my next move." Steve nodded, understanding. He'd been through a divorce himself 3 years ago. "You staying at my place tonight?" "I appreciate it, but no," I replied, straightening my shoulders. "I won't be driven from my own home." "That's the Mark I know," Steve said with approval. "How did you miss the signs, though? You're usually sharp about people." I stared into my glass, remembering. There were signs. I just didn't want to see them. Sarah had started working late 3 months ago. "New project," she'd said. Then came the sudden fitness kick, the new wardrobe, the protective attitude about her phone. Classic red flags I'd willfully ignored. About 2 months ago, I told Steve we were at the company picnic. This guy Jason kept hovering around her. I noticed how they'd laugh at inside jokes, how his hand would linger on her arm. When I asked about him later, she dismissed it as just a work friend. Steve's expression darkened. "You should have told me. I would have checked him out." "What's done is done," I said firmly. "Question is, what now?" If it were me, Steve leaned in, I'd gather evidence before confronting her again. "She'll try to twist this, make you the bad guy for snooping." My phone buzzed repeatedly, Sarah calling for the 5th time. I silenced it. "You might be right," I admitted, "but I need to know everything before deciding." Just then, Linda, my office manager, entered the bar. Spotting us, she made her way over. "Mark, I'm so glad I found you," she said breathlessly. "Sarah called the shop looking for you. I remembered you mentioned meeting Steve here sometimes." "What did you tell her?" I asked. "That I hadn't seen you," Linda replied. She sounded strange. "Is everything okay?" I'd worked with Linda for 8 years. She was loyal, discreet, and sharp as a tack. After a moment's consideration, I decided to trust her. "Sarah's been having an affair," I said bluntly. "I just found out today." Linda's eyes widened, then narrowed. "With that guy who keeps picking her up for lunch? The one with the silver Audi?" I froze. "What guy with a silver Audi?" Linda looked uncomfortable. "I saw them about 3 weeks ago when I was dropping off those contracts at your house." She said he was a co-worker, giving her a ride to a meeting. "Did you happen to notice the license plate?" Steve asked, his former police background showing. Linda smiled grimly. "As a matter of fact, I did. It was a vanity plate, Tech 20. Steve was already pulling out his phone. "My buddy at the DMV can run this." I nodded gratefully, then turned to Linda. "I may need your help in the coming days." "Anything you need, Mark," she replied without hesitation. "Just say the word." For the first time since discovering Sarah's betrayal, I felt a plan forming. I wouldn't act rashly. I'd be strategic. And when the time came to make my move, Sarah would never see it coming. The next morning, I arrived at my main auto shop earlier than usual. I needed the comfort of familiar surroundings, the smell of motor oil, the rhythmic sound of pneumatic tools, the honest labor of fixing things that were broken. If only marriages could be repaired as easily as engines. Steve called around noon. "Got the info on that plate. Registered to Jason Winters, 36, executive at Tech Vision." He paused. "Same company as Sarah. VP of Product Development," I confirmed. "Her direct supervisor." "That's a whole other level of trouble," Steve warned. "Any chance you want to back off? Sometimes ignorance is—" "No," I cut him off. "I need the whole truth." Just then, my phone buzzed with a text from Sarah. "Please come home early tonight. We need to talk. I can explain everything." I didn't respond. Instead, I called my brother Michael, a family law attorney in New York. "I need advice, Mikey," I said when he answered. "Legal advice." After explaining the situation, I listened as my brother outlined my options. The conversation was painful, but necessary. "Document everything," Michael advised. "Massachusetts is a no-fault state, but evidence of infidelity can impact property division if it involved financial betrayal too. What do you mean? Check your accounts. See if she spent joint funds on this affair. Hotels, gifts, trips. That matters. When I hung up, Linda approached with a concerned expression. Mark, there's something else you should know. She hesitated. I overheard Sarah on the phone once, about a month ago, when I dropped off those contract revisions. She mentioned something about a cabin by the lake this weekend. Said she couldn't wait to get away from everything. The pieces clicked into place. The weekend getaway Sarah and Jason had planned while I was supposed to be in Chicago. Thank you, Linda, I said, my resolve hardening. Could you do me one more favor? Call Sarah and tell her I mentioned working late tonight. Say I seemed upset. Linda nodded, understanding immediately. Setting a trap? Just creating an opportunity for her to show her true colors. That evening, I parked a block away from our house and walked back silently. Through the living room window, I could see Sarah pacing nervously, phone her ear. I moved closer, staying in the shadows, and heard her voice clearly through the partially open window. He suspects something, Jason, but he doesn't know for sure, Sarah was saying. No, don't cancel the reservation. I'll handle Mark. He's so wrapped up in his precious car shops he'll believe whatever I tell him. She laughed at something Jason said. I know, right? Don't worry. By this time tomorrow, he'll be back to being clueless Mark, and we'll be at the lake. I'd heard enough. The last shred of doubt evaporated, replaced by cold clarity. I didn't confront her then. That would come later on my terms. Instead, I silently returned to my car and drove to Steve's place to plan my next move. You're sure about this? Steve asked when I outlined what I intended to do. Absolutely. I replied, my voice steady. Sarah thinks she's calling the shots. Time to show her how wrong she is. I spent that night at Steve's place, my mind racing through options. By morning, I had my plan. No more reacting. Time to take control. You sure about this? Steve asked over coffee. Once you start, there's no going back. I've never been more certain of anything, I replied. 15 years of my life deserve more than her lies. My first stop was the bank. I opened a separate account and transferred half our joint savings. Not taking everything. I wasn't vindictive, just protective. Next, I visited my lawyer, Richard Hamilton. We'd been friends since high school, and he'd handled all my business contracts. Divorce isn't my specialty, Rich admitted after hearing my story. But I know enough to get you started. Massachusetts is a no-fault state, but her behavior might impact asset division, especially if she used joint funds for the affair. I'm not looking to destroy her, I clarified. I just want what's fair. Rich nodded approvingly. That's why we've been friends for 30 years. Now, here's what you need to do immediately. I spent the afternoon securing my business assets and gathering important documents. The prenuptial agreement we'd signed protected my auto shops, but there were still joint properties and investments to consider. Linda met me at the main shop after closing time with files I'd requested. Sarah called again. She informed me. Wanted to know when you'd be home. Said she's worried sick. What did you tell her? That you were in meetings all day. Seemed believable. Linda hesitated. She sounded genuinely upset, Mark. Of course she did, I replied without emotion. Her weekend getaway is at risk. My phone buzzed with another text from Sarah. Please come home. I made your favorite dinner. We need to talk. I didn't respond. Instead, I called my brother Michael again. Everything's in place, Michael confirmed. The papers will be ready tomorrow. Thanks, Mikey. I owe you. You do the same for me, he replied simply. By evening, I completed my preparations. I drove back to our neighborhood, but parked a few houses down. Through the window, I could see Sarah pacing in the kitchen, periodically checking her phone. The sight of our home, the lawn I'd meticulously maintained, the porch swing we'd spent summer evenings on, the oak tree we'd planted together our first year, should have filled me with sadness. Instead, I felt only resolve. This house had become just another stage for Sarah's performance, and I was done being her audience. I texted Steve. It's time. His reply was immediate. You've got this, brother. With a deep breath, I started the engine and drove away. Not to confront Sarah. Not yet. I still had one more crucial task before tomorrow's endgame. Sarah thought she had another day before I returned from Chicago. She had no idea that by this time tomorrow, everything would change. Morning came with a sense of clarity I hadn't felt since discovering Sarah's betrayal. Today was the day everything would change. I met Michael at his hotel for breakfast. He'd flown in late last night to help finalize the details. All set? He asked, sliding a folder across the table. Divorce papers, financial disclosure forms, everything you need. I thumbed through the documents, each page representing another nail in the coffin of my marriage. Thanks for coming in person, Mikey. That's what brothers do, he replied simply. Now walk me through the plan again. I outlined each step, the timing critical. Sarah would be leaving for her weekend trip with Jason this afternoon. I'd be waiting at home when she returned on Sunday, but not as the husband she expected to find. After breakfast, I met with Linda at the main auto shop. I need one more favor, I told her. Can you handle the Johnson account meeting this afternoon? I won't be available. Of course, Linda agreed, but her eyes reflected concern. What are you planning, Mark? A clean break, I answered, and I might need a place to stay for a few days afterward. Linda didn't hesitate. My guest room is yours, however long you need. I appreciate that more than you know, I said sincerely. My next stop was our safety deposit box at the bank. I removed our wedding rings, my grandfather's band that I'd worn with pride for 15 years, along with the deed to the cabin my parents had left me. Sarah had never been added to that deed, thankfully. Steve called while I was leaving the bank. Just drove by your place. Sarah's loading a weekend bag into her car. Looks like she's sticking to the plan. Perfect, I replied. Meet me at Rich's office in an hour. Richard had the final documents ready when we arrived. Steve would serve as witness to my signatures. Once these are filed, Rich explained, there's a mandatory waiting period, but the separation of assets begins immediately. I signed each page with steady hands, my signature marking the end of one chapter and the beginning of another. What now? Steve asked as we left the office. Now, I said, checking my watch. We wait until Sarah leaves, then I go home one last time. We watched from Steve's car as Sarah emerged from our house, weekend bag in hand. She looked excited, carefree, the weight of deception apparently easy for her to bear. Once her car disappeared around the corner, I drove home. The house felt different somehow, hollow, like a stage set after the actors had gone. I moved methodically through each room, gathering only what mattered most. My father's watch, photo albums of my family, the signed baseball my grandfather had given me before he died. In our bedroom, I placed the divorce papers on Sarah's pillow, along with my wedding ring and a short letter. Sarah, you disappeared for one day. When you return, I'll be gone. I know everything about Jason. Don't bother with explanations. My attorney will contact you next week. Mark. Simple. Direct. Final. I took one last look around the house we'd shared, then walked out the door, locking it behind me. The weight that had been crushing my chest since discovering her betrayal began to lighten with each step toward my car. Whatever happened next, I would face it on my terms, not hers. Steve's spare room wasn't fancy, but it offered something I desperately needed: peace. I spent Friday night reviewing the divorce strategy with Michael, then Saturday preparing for what came next. Sarah's been calling nonstop, Steve reported, checking my phone, which I'd mostly ignored. 23 missed calls and about 40 texts. I scrolled through the messages. Where are you? Please come home so we can talk. This is ridiculous, Mark. Answer your phone. I cancel my plans to wait for you. I'm getting worried. If I don't hear from you soon, I'm calling the police. That last one made me chuckle grimly. Seems she canceled her romantic getaway. You knew she would, Michael observed. Once she realized you weren't playing by her script. She'll be frantic by now, I acknowledged, feeling no satisfaction in her panic, just a dull certainty that I was doing what needed to be done. Around noon, Linda called. Sarah showed up at the shop looking for you. She seemed completely distraught. What did you tell her? That I hadn't seen you since Thursday, Linda replied. She didn't believe me. Started demanding access to your office. I had to threaten to call security. I'm sorry you got dragged into this, I said. Don't be, Linda assured me. After what she did, she deserves worse. By Saturday evening, Sarah had escalated to calling Steve, who answered with an Academy Award-worthy performance of ignorance. No idea where he is, Sarah. Maybe he needed some space. People do disappear sometimes. On Sunday morning, the day Sarah would have returned from her weekend trip, had she gone, I received a text from our neighbor Ted. Your wife's parents just arrived. They look worried. Everything okay? So she called in reinforcements. Predictable. Sarah's parents had always adored me. Their success story, son-in-law who built a business from nothing. Wonder how they'd feel knowing their daughter was sleeping with her boss. Time for phase 2. Michael asked over breakfast. I nodded. Let's do it. While Sarah orchestrated a search party, I was systematically separating our lives. Michael had already filed the divorce papers on Friday. Rich had frozen our joint investment accounts pending legal proceedings. And I'd met with my business accountant to ensure the auto shops were protected. Now came the hardest part, facing the whispers and questions that would follow. I wasn't hiding forever, just long enough for Sarah to understand what it felt like to have someone disappear without explanation. Steve clapped my shoulder. You ready for tomorrow? As I'll ever be, I replied. Tomorrow I'd return to work, face my employees, and begin my new life as a soon-to-be divorced man. My phone buzzed with another text from Sarah. Please, Mark. Whatever you think happened, you're wrong. Just come home so I can explain. I love you. Too little, too late. The man who would have done anything to save his marriage was gone. In his place stood someone stronger, someone who refused to be deceived any longer. That night, I wrote an email to my employees explaining that Sarah and I were separating, asking for their discretion and support during this transition. As I pressed send, I felt a weight lifting. Sarah had disappeared for what was supposed to be one day with her lover. When she returned, I was gone, not just physically, but in every way that mattered. Monday morning arrived with a sense of purpose. I dressed carefully in my best suit, armor for the day ahead, and drove to my main auto shop. Michael insisted on coming along for moral support. You sure you're ready for this? He asked as we pulled into the parking lot. No turning back now, I replied, straightening my tie. The moment I walked through the door, conversation stopped. Linda recovered first, striding forward with a professional smile that didn't quite mask her concern. Good morning, boss. Your 9 a.m. with Peterson Auto Parts is confirmed, and there's coffee in your office. Thank you, Linda, I said, loud enough for everyone to hear. For everything. The morning proceeded with surprising normalcy. Employees who'd received my email offered subtle nods of support, but asked no questions. By noon, I'd settled back into work rhythms, finding comfort in the familiar problems of inventory and customer service. Then Sarah arrived. I was reviewing a parts order when Linda's voice came through the intercom. Mark, your wife is here. Security wants to know if they should let her in. Taking a deep breath, I replied, send her in my office. Michael, who'd been working quietly in the corner, stood. Want me to stay? No, I decided. This is between us. Sarah burst through the door seconds later, looking nothing like the polished professional I'd known for 15 years. Her hair was disheveled, eyes red-rimmed, makeup hastily applied. Where have you been? She demanded, slamming her purse on my desk. Do you have any idea what I've been through? I called hospitals. I filed a missing person report. I leaned back in my chair, regarding her calmly. I left you a letter explaining everything. A letter. She practically spat the word. 4 sentences ending our marriage. And you think that's explanation enough? What would be enough, Sarah? A detailed account of your affair with Jason? The plans you made for your lake house getaway while I was supposedly in Chicago? Or maybe the way you laughed about manipulating me on the phone Thursday night? Her face paled. You were spying on me? No, Sarah. I came home early to surprise you and found your emails. Everything after that was just confirmation of what I already knew. Sarah collapsed into the chair opposite me, her anger deflating. Mark, it was a mistake. A stupid, terrible mistake that meant nothing. If it meant nothing, that's worse. I replied, echoing words I'd said days earlier. And it wasn't a mistake. It was a choice. Multiple choices, made day after day. So that's it. 15 years of marriage, and you just disappear without giving me a chance to explain? The irony of her complaint wasn't lost on me. You disappeared first, Sarah, I said quietly. The moment you decided our vows meant nothing, I just made it official. What do you want? She whispered finally. To punish me? Make me suffer. I want a divorce. I answered simply. Clean, fair, and final. My lawyer has already filed the papers. And if I contest it, then we do this the hard way, I replied, my voice hardening. Every email, every photo, every detail becomes public record. Your parents, our friends, your colleagues, everyone will know exactly what happened. Is that what you want? Sarah stared at me for a long moment, searching for the husband who would have done anything to save our marriage. He was gone. You've changed, she said finally. Yes, I agreed. I have. After she left, Michael returned, eyebrows raised in question. She'll sign, I predicted. She has too much to lose otherwise. That evening, as I left work surrounded by employees who had shown their loyalty through discretion, I felt something unexpected. Not happiness, not yet, but possibility. The future stretched before me, uncertain but my own. 3 months passed quickly. Sarah signed the divorce papers without contest, likely realizing her position was indefensible. The process moved forward with clinical efficiency, exactly as Michael had predicted. I threw myself into work, expanding operations to a 6th location in a neighboring town. The distraction was welcome, the success even more so. You're different now, Linda remarked one evening as we reviewed quarterly projections. More focused. Clarity will do that, I replied. We've been working late more frequently, our professional relationship evolving into something that might someday be more. But I wasn't rushing. Some wounds needed time. Steve invited me to his bar's 5th anniversary celebration. Bring a date if you want, he suggested. Time to get back out there, brother. Not ready yet, I admitted. But I'm getting there. The party was in full swing when I arrived. Old friends clapped my back, asked careful questions about how I was holding up. Their concern was genuine, if unnecessary. I was doing better than anyone expected. Then Sarah walked in. She'd lost weight, dyed her hair darker. She spotted me immediately, her expression unreadable as she made her way through the crowd. I didn't know you'd be here, she said, clutching her purse nervously. It's my best friend's celebration, I replied evenly. Why wouldn't I be? An awkward silence stretched between us, 15 years of history compressed into a moment. How are you, Mark? She finally asked. I'm good, Sarah. Really good. She nodded, blinking rapidly. I heard about the new location. Congratulations. Thank you. Another pause. Then, Jason and I broke up. I realized it wasn't real. I took a slow sip of my drink, considering my response. I hope you find what you're looking for. I had it, she whispered. I just didn't realize until it was gone. The Sarah who stood before me now wasn't the confident woman who deceived me for months. She seemed smaller somehow, diminished by the consequences of her choices. Mark, is there any chance? No, I said gently but firmly. That door is closed. Her eyes filled with tears. I understand. I miss you. You miss who you thought I was. I corrected her. The man who would forgive anything, look past any betrayal. That's not me anymore. She wiped her eyes and nodded. You're right. I'm sorry I interrupted your evening. Take care of yourself, Mark. As she walked away, Steve appeared at my side. You okay? Better than okay, I realized, surprising myself with the truth of it. The divorce would be final next month. The business was thriving, and for the first time in years, I was moving forward without looking back, lighter for having shed the weight of a relationship built on shifting sand. 1 year to the day after discovering Sarah's betrayal, I signed the final paperwork on my 7th auto shop location. The expansion had exceeded even my optimistic projections, turning AutoPro into a regional success story featured in local business magazines. We should celebrate, Linda suggested, her smile warming something long dormant inside me. Our relationship had evolved gradually over the past 6 months, moving from professional to personal with a carefulness we both appreciated. Dinner tonight, I proposed. That new place downtown. Michael had flown in for the signing and joined us for the celebration. As we toasted success, he leaned back with a satisfied expression. Remember where you were a year ago? Look at you now. The contrast was stark. A year ago, I'd been sleepwalking through a marriage built on lies. Today, I stood on solid ground of my own making. After dinner, Linda excused herself briefly, and Michael seized the opportunity. So, you and Linda? It's getting serious. I smiled, taking it slow, but yes. She's remarkable. She didn't stab you in the back when she could have, Michael observed. That's a solid foundation. The divorce had been finalized 8 months ago. Sarah got the house and a fair settlement. I kept my business and my dignity. We hadn't spoken since that night at Steve's bar, though I occasionally heard updates through mutual friends. Last I'd heard, she'd left Tech Vision and moved to Chicago for a fresh start. I wished her well, genuinely. The anger had faded, replaced by something closer to gratitude for the painful but necessary awakening. Linda returned, and Michael tactfully departed, leaving us to walk along the waterfront where spring flowers were just beginning to bloom. "A penny for your thoughts," Linda said, her hand warm in mine, "just reflecting on how life changes. A year ago, I thought I'd lost everything that mattered. Turns out, I hadn't yet found it." She squeezed my hand. "That might be the most romantic thing you've ever said." We stopped at the harbor overlook, the city lights reflecting on the dark water. The moment felt right. "I have something for you," I said, pulling a small box from my pocket. Inside was a key. Linda looked confused. "What's this for?" "My new place," I explained. "I'm not asking you to move in yet, but I want you to know you're always welcome. No secrets, no games." Her eyes glistened as she accepted the key. "That means more than you know." Later that night, as Linda slept peacefully beside me, I checked my email one last time. Among the business correspondence was a message from Sarah, the first direct communication in months. "Mark," it read simply, "I heard about your success from Steve. I'm happy for you. I've been doing a lot of thinking about what happened between us. You were right. When you disappeared that weekend, it showed me exactly how it felt to be betrayed. I learned the hard way that when someone disappears for a day, sometimes they're gone forever. I hope she appreciates what she has. I know I didn't." I closed the email without responding. Some chapters were better left ended. Turning off the light, I settled back in bed, watching moonlight play across the ceiling. Sarah had disappeared for what was supposed to be one day with her lover. I had disappeared in return, and in that leaving, I had found my way forward. Sometimes the best way to find yourself is to disappear completely.